Well, hello everyone.
Hiya.
Here's the team from KeepDataPrivate. This is our second call so far, and we shall have them every month on the last Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. UTC. So watch out for the time zone you're in, watch out for summertime, wintertime. If you go through countries that don't have those changes, be mindful as well. And so I hope we can see you here at some point. Now, who are we? I'm Daniela. I have had a keen interest on security for a very long time. My first bachelor thesis was written on security, and back then, my main thought was around fingerprint security for mobile phones, as one example. And yes, it still is of keen interest to me, including unnecessary security, such as Jitsi asking me to log into another system, which I may or may not want to share my password with, in order to authenticate myself. So, whilst I do want a good amount of security to keep my data, my personal data in particular, private, I do not want too much to stop me from doing things. So that's where I come from. And now over to myself.
Hi, my name's Marcel. I also think security is important, but I think your Keep Data Private is very much focusing on privacy of your data, your personal data. And I know there's a lot of people who are quite happy to share everything with everyone. Facebook is a prime candidate. But I, for one, for example, have not got an account on Facebook. I never have had an account on Facebook because when Facebook was still new and something interesting, I looked at the terms and conditions, and one of the things they had in there was that anything you upload to Facebook was going to become the property of Facebook. You would lose the copyright of that data, and they could do what they wanted with that data. So everything that you do on Facebook belongs to Facebook. Everything you upload to Facebook belongs on Facebook. Everything that you, every time you interact with Facebook, it belongs to Facebook. And I just didn't want that. I also know from past experience that, for example, just trying to share your contact details with people. Once you hand over a business card, for example, the whole point of a business card is that you want that data to be out there and about. It's quite hard sometimes for people to get people to call you. These days, your contact details are used for spam and sending you all sorts of spam email and junk. Just yesterday, for example, I received an email from a company saying that they were going to be processing my data and all the things they were going to be doing with my data and etc. I've never heard of this company. I don't know how they got my details. They didn't make that clear. But they basically gave no indication that I had any control of my data as to what they did and what data of mine they had, for that matter. So I have filled in the form, the web form, to not have my data processed by this company. I figured that they already have my email address from somewhere. That giving them my email address again wouldn't change things. I wasn't going to give them any more information other than my email address to say don't process my data, and they are going to review it and received an email. I actually, as part of that process, I had to confirm my email address. They had to send an email, with a link that I then had to click on to confirm my email address. In other words, it's similar to creating an account. Just to ask them to stop, processing my data, I have to confirm my email address. So that's them basically now knowing that this email address is valid. So I don't know where it stands, but it's considering they already had my email address. I didn't think confirming my email address was going to change things. So I filled in the form, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. But yeah, it's a company I've never heard of before saying, we will be processing your data Here's our, we consider privacy very important, etc., etc. None of these companies really consider privacy important. They just consider your data important. So I would love to get to a state where we can control our data so that we can say who we want to share our data with. So if it's business contact details, you get in touch with someone, you say, yes, please have my contact details. If you choose to no longer do business with this person, then you can also choose to remove your contact details. At this day and age, you can't. If you've given your contact details over to someone, they've got it forever. You can ask them to contact details, but how many times have you tried asking a company to delete your contact details only for them to contact you again in a year's time when that data gets restored somehow onto their system? So getting data back into our control, even if it's just contact data, is where I'm coming from.
In terms of your question, how often have you asked people to remove your data? This is my go-to response to companies who I no longer want to deal with and spam. I simply refer them to GDPR, and they ought to delete all of my data of all of their systems. Otherwise, I will have to take steps. I've created a standard email template, and currently none of them have gotten back to me again.
No, exactly. But that was the interesting thing about the email I got yesterday, was that they do say they comply with all these regulations, including GDPR. So that's why I've gone through my hassle of asking them to remove my data through their web form. GDPR actually says that we don't have to follow their procedure. We can just request it any way we choose to request it. But since I don't have I'm following their process and see where it takes me. It's just an interesting one on its own. But yeah, it's the world we live in at the moment.
Currently, but it will always be changed again. There will always be changes, improvements, sometimes a step back.
Yes.
But it will hopefully get better in the long term.
Yeah, no, exactly. Another interesting thing talking about data privacy is there's a new TV series called Concordia, which is about a utopian, dystopian. I think quite often these futuristic films are about the same topic, really. There is no utopia, it's always dystopia. But this one was very much describing what most people would consider a dystopia, where everything is monitored, everything is recorded. The difference being that there's not supposed to be a human, watching those recordings and controlling those recordings. But the difference is that there's an AI who controls, who has access to that information. The AI decides, when the data is important to be had, and it's quite a good movie in that respect, just raising those questions, because they do try, and perhaps not very hard, but they do try and convince you that this is actually a utopian scenario. They have a lot of effectively like an advertising campaign for the fictional site, where they're trying to have these people saying, "Oh, I love it this way because of this reason and this reason and this reason." But I think it's a good thought-provoking series around data privacy, because this is a world where everything is recorded and everything is monitored. But how different is it actually from today's world anyway?
Okay.
How far away are we from that dystopian future?
Okay, just for everyone who is watching it near the time we're filming this, there are only 2 episodes out at the moment. The story is in the process of unfolding, so we will hear more about how the authors wanted to talk about this topic.
Yeah. No, it's a good, again, a question about privacy. It's obviously something that people find. I think that people find it important, but I think people also don't know how to actually control it, because it's out of our control at the moment. Our data is not within our control, and I think our mission with KeepDataPrivate is, how do we get our data back into our control so that we can decide who can access it.
Correct. And I do think that the problem tends to be a large one, or a big, multifaceted topic. And whilst I have no problem with having been filmed and I appear in the news in the background somewhere, for example, I have no issue with that. People who know me send me a text, "Oh, I've seen you." Done. I'm out in public. I know I've been outside in public. But other things, other information about myself is may not be something for the open wider world, for example, and then I want to definitely, most certainly, keep control over it. But then there's the big gray zone in the middle.
Hmm.
All of the things that are currently public that may or may not need a review of what it should be. I'm thinking about medical records at this point in time, or think about work, your performance reviews. Is that something you would like to see out in the open? Some people have no issue with it, and some people would rather keeping it under wraps. So that there's a lot to the topic of keeping data private. First of all,
Yeah,
the conversation around what is private, what does it mean as such. Then,
exactly.
secondly, data. Which type of data? What kind of data? Is the same piece of information at a similar, or does it need a similar privacy level throughout its whole lifetime? Or does it need a bit more or a bit less at different points in time?
Yeah,
Things like that. So it's a big conversation topic.
yeah,
Personally, I think GDPR is a good step in the right direction.
yeah,
I think it's not enough. And when I say it's not enough, I do not mean that we need to be controlled and monitored more by the authorities that are. But I think that smart people need to get their head together to really think about what is the sweet spot between too much, too little, who needs it, who doesn't need it, and so on.
yeah. And I think it's also around the defaults. I mean, the one thing I like about GDPR is that the default is if you haven't given permission for them to use your data in a particular way, they can't use it. I like, that's a default for privacy. The problem is that you don't get to decide what those questions are when you want to sign up for an account
Mhm.
and things like that.
Mhm.
So they say we want all these permissions to be able to do all this with your data, and
Mhm.
it's you that has to go through the hurdles to say no, that's not what I want if I want to use this service of yours.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, the easy response is obviously stop using the service, like I do with Facebook. But it's amazing how many times people are absolutely astounded that I don't have a Facebook account. Even if it's just to access their so-called website, which is a Facebook page.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I think it's important, that we have a default for privacy, right, and that we decide, what it is that we want to share. It's not don't share everything. It's just to have a starting point of let it be um, private by default.
Mhm. Yes.
Important. That's what I like about the GDPR rules is that it's unless you actually specify what it is that's going to be used for, you can't use it.
Yes. I completely agree. Now, given that our calls are still new and we're
Yes.
currently only two people, so my suggestion is that before the week is out, I will try and find a relevant current topic on private data or privacy. And I'll put
Hmm.
it up on our website so that we can use this to generate a conversation for next time round,
Sounds good.
rather than just ambling along, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to know where we're all coming from, but at some point we want to actually be a bit more constructive.
Yes. And one thing I always like about life is we have the opportunity to be active and proactive
Yes,
and to do something and take steps in the right direction.
yes,
So one of our projects or sister project is an app that's a period tracker for anyone who menstruates to basically collect data on when they're menstruating, when they have symptoms, when they have pain, or when they're fine, and have that information only on the phone rather than have it sent into the cloud or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So we are being proactive in order to help people out there to keep at least the period data private and on the phones.
Yeah.
And the Keep Data Private forum, in my opinion, again, it should foster conversation about the topic or topics,
Yes.
and also with a view of what are some of the areas that really should be looked at, where we really can make something happen in a positive way to make it not only more private, but generally better than what we have at
Yes.
the moment.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's about being constructive about addressing the issue, not just complaining about it,
Yes.
complaining about the current state of affairs. No, exactly. Yeah, I think this forum has a lot of potential to do a lot of good. So
Yes.
looking forward to it.
Yes. And of course, if anyone else out there, if you're watching this video, if you have something close to your heart, do email us, get in touch. Yes, my email address or our email addresses are on the website. You can always get in touch. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you as well. Tell us what you want to talk about. Tell us what is important to you. Tell us about the projects you're working on. Just have a chat and see what happens, because as we're growing as a community, we can help each other. And I do wholeheartedly believe that people interested in a topic, people interested in making life better for everyone, will be able to make a change, a positive change in the world. So get in touch, be positive, and do some good work.
Cool. Thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss this time?
Not today. It's basically trying to get people interested and coming up to us and being proactive to say, yes, I'd like to join this effort.
Yeah. One thing that's worth looking into, I was thinking about it, this is just thinking out loud, is the Electronic Freedom Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So they very much focus on electronic freedom, but there must be a bit of overlap there as well with privacy. So it might be worth looking into what they do and see how we can integrate with them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll take a note of that. Okay,
And
good.
even if it's just to see how they operate, it's mirror some of the ways and things that they do, but looking at it from a privacy point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Brilliant.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next time.
And until next time, halfway through the year then.
Yeah.
Okay, until then, bye bye.